I'm sorry, sir. I can't accept this. I'm just doing my job.
Keep taking those deep breaths for me. You're doing so well.
He's breathing easier now. Thank you, nurse. Thank you so much.
Seeing you all here, ready to care for others, makes every struggle worth it. I am so proud.
I don't want your money. The entire diner went silent. Forks paused midair. The air conditioning hummed louder than the whispers that followed. The man, sitting in the corner booth, a well-dressed businessman with silver hair and a gold watch, blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me?" The waitress standing before him, her name tag read Clara, held her tray steady even though her hands trembled. Her eyes were soft but firm. "I said I can't take your tips, sir." He raised an eyebrow. "It's $50, young lady. You've earned it." Clara shook her head. "No, sir. I didn't earn this one." The other customers looked on, curious. The manager, a short woman with a worried look, peeked from behind the counter ready to intervene. The man frowned. "I don't understand." "You gave me great service." Clara swallowed hard. "It's not about the service." He leaned back. "Then what is it about?" She hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen door where the hum of dishes and the smell of burnt coffee filled the air. Her throat tightened. "It's about who you are." Now the man looked annoyed. "And who am I, exactly?" Before she could answer, the manager hurried over, whispering urgently, "Clara, what are you doing? Don't cause a scene." Clara didn't look away from the man. He should know. The businessman crossed his arms. "This better be good." Clara took a deep breath. 2 years ago, you were at St. Mary's Hospital. You came into the ER with your son. You were shouting. You wanted a private doctor, said you wouldn't let any nurse touch him because they looked dirty. A wave of quiet swept through the diner. Even the clatter of dishes from the kitchen stopped. The man's face stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Clara's eyes filled with tears she tried hard to hide. "You looked right at my mother. She was the nurse trying to help your boy. You told her to stay away, said you didn't trust her kind. She went home that night and cried until she couldn't breathe. The color drained from his face. You're mistaken," he muttered. Clara shook her head slowly. "I'm not. I was there. I was in the waiting room holding her bag, watching her try to smile while you tore her apart." The manager whispered, "Clara, please." But the diner had fallen into a silence so heavy it was impossible to break. The man cleared his throat, voice lower now. "So that's why you won't take my money? Because you're holding a grudge?" Clara looked down, then met his eyes again. "No, sir. Because I've forgiven you, but I won't be paid to pretend it never happened." Her voice was calm, steady, heartbreaking. The man stared at her, speechless. Clara gently set the bill on the table and turned away, whispering, "Some things money can't fix." She walked back toward the counter, tears threatening to spill. The room stayed silent, every soul inside unsure whether to breathe or applaud. At the booth, the man sat motionless, the $50 bill between his fingers trembling like a confession. Then, quietly, he asked the manager, "Her mother, what happened to her?" The manager hesitated. "You better ask Clara that yourself." The man turned. But Clara was already walking out the back door, her apron still on. The bell above the diner door jingled as Mr. Hensley, the businessman, stepped outside. But Clara was gone. He stood in the drizzle, scanning the parking lot, heart pounding. He'd been insulted before, challenged before, but never like this. Her words burned in his chest. "You told her to stay away. Said you didn't trust her kind." He rubbed his forehead and muttered, "That can't be true. I was angry. I didn't mean..." But the memories started to come back. The hospital hallway. The panic. His son gasping for air, and yes, a nurse, dark-skinned, calm, holding a syringe. He remembered shouting, "Get someone else! I don't want her touching my boy!" He'd thought it didn't matter. Just stress talking. He'd never thought about it again. Until now. Back inside the diner, the manager approached Clara. who was wiping down the counter with trembling hands. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I know that man hurt your mother, but you can't keep holding this weight." Clara didn't look up. "I'm not holding a grudge. I just can't take money from the man who made her feel like she was nothing." The manager sighed. "You're just like her, you know that? Strong. But you can't heal the world by punishing yourself." Clara smiled weakly. "I'm not punishing myself. I'm honoring her." That night, Mr. Hensley sat alone in his office. The rain beat against the glass walls as city lights flickered outside. He couldn't work, couldn't eat, couldn't stop seeing that young woman's face. So calm, so hurt, so much like the nurse from years ago. He opened his laptop and searched. St. Mary's Hospital. Nurse resignations. 2020. There it was. Nurse Gloria Matthews, 25 years of service, left due to illness. His chest tightened. "Gloria," he whispered. The next morning, he drove to St. Mary's. The receptionist recognized his name instantly. "Mr. Hensley," she said politely, "are you here for an appointment?" He shook his head. "I'm looking for someone." "Gloria Matthews." The woman's expression softened. "I'm sorry. She passed away last year." The world seemed to tilt. He stepped back, gripping the counter. "Passed away?" "She had cancer," the receptionist said quietly. "But she worked until she couldn't stand anymore. Everyone loved her." Mr. Hensley's voice cracked. Did she ever talk about her daughter?" The woman smiled faintly. "Clara, she came here sometimes to bring her mom dinner. Sweet girl. Her mom used to say, 'That girl's going to be stronger than me one day.'" That afternoon, Mr. Hensley parked outside the diner again. He sat in his car for a long time, staring at the neon sign blinking open, trying to gather courage. Finally, he stepped inside. The bell jingled again. Clara froze when she saw him. "You shouldn't be here." He raised a hand. "Please, just a minute." The manager watched quietly from the counter but didn't interrupt. Mr. Hensley cleared his throat. "I went to the hospital." Clara's expression changed. Suspicion, confusion, then pain. "Why?" "I needed to know about your mother." Her eyes glistened. "And what did you find?" He swallowed hard. "That she was extraordinary. That she helped people until the end." Clara blinked away tears. "She did. Even when people didn't treat her right. I was one of them," he said softly. "And I've hated myself every second since I remembered." Clara looked down. "It's too late for her to hear that." He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but it's not too late for what she left behind." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He took a folded paper from his coat pocket and set it on the counter. "This is the new medical fund I've set up. In her name. For nurses who get mistreated or need help." Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the paper. "It's called the Gloria Matthews Compassion Grant," he said. "It's the least I can do." Her eyes filled with tears she could no longer hold back. "Why are you doing this?" He smiled sadly. "Because your mother saved my son's life, even after I told her not to." The memory hit Mr. Hensley like a storm. He had pushed it away for years. That night at St. Mary's Hospital, when fear, pride, and prejudice blinded him to the truth. He could still hear his son's voice echoing. "Dad, I can't breathe." The ER was chaos. Lights flashing, nurses rushing, the smell of disinfectant filling the air. He'd carried his 12-year-old son, Michael, through the sliding doors, shouting for help. "Somebody, please." A nurse had come forward. Calm, composed, wearing scrubs with a badge that said Gloria Matthews, RN. She had kind eyes and steady hands. "What happened?" she asked. "He can't breathe," Hensley shouted. "He has asthma." "Do something." She nodded, already moving fast. "We'll take care of him." "Please, let me—" But fear turned to rage in an instant. Another nurse, a young man, reached for an oxygen mask and Hensley snapped, "I said get someone else." "Not her!" The room froze. Gloria stepped back, stunned. "Sir, I'm the senior nurse here." "Please let me help. I don't care who you are." Hensley barked. "Get me a real doctor." Her face didn't change. No anger, no tears, just quiet understanding. She stepped aside. "Of course, sir." Moments later, a doctor arrived, but by then Michael's breathing had worsened. The doctor called for help. "I need someone experienced with pediatric airways." And without hesitation, Gloria came back. She didn't ask for permission this time. She just acted. "Doctor, his airway's closing. We need adrenaline. Now," she ordered, voice firm. Within seconds, she injected the medication, adjusted the oxygen mask, and tilted the boy's head gently. "Breathe with me, sweetheart," she whispered. In and out. "You're safe." His chest began to rise again. His color returned. The monitor beeped. Steady. Rhythmic. Michael coughed weakly, whispering, "Dad," and that was the sound that broke him. Hensley looked at Gloria. This woman he had shouted at, dismissed, humiliated, now standing quietly by his son's bed, saving his life. He opened his mouth to speak, but she simply smiled. "He'll be fine now. Try to get some rest." And before he could say a word, she turned and walked out of the room. Years later, standing in that same hospital hallway, Hensley ran his hand across the tiled wall, the memory overwhelming him. He whispered, "You didn't just save my son. You saved me too." That evening, back at the diner, Clara sat alone at a corner booth, staring at her mother's old photo, a worn Polaroid of a smiling nurse holding her in her arms. She whispered softly, "You'd tell me to be kind, wouldn't you, Mama? Even to him." The door opened quietly. Mr. Hensley stood there again, not as a customer, not as a CEO, but as a man finally humbled. He approached slowly. "Clara, may I sit?" She nodded hesitantly. He placed a small framed photo on the table. It was her mother, younger, smiling with a group of hospital staff. "I found this in the St. Mary's archives," he said. "They told me she trained half the emergency team there, that she used to hum to calm frightened patients." Clara touched the frame gently, her lip trembling. "She did. She used to hum to me, too." Hensley looked at her. "I didn't just wrong her, Clara. I wronged every person she ever stood for. And I want to make that right." She frowned softly. "How can you?" He took a deep breath. "By making sure her kindness doesn't end with her death." He reached into his pocket and placed a small envelope on the table. "This isn't charity. It's the start of a scholarship for nurses. The Gloria Matthews Fund. Every year, it'll help young women like her study without worrying about the world judging them." Clara blinked rapidly, speechless. Hensley's voice cracked. "Your mother saved my son. And I never even said thank you," Clara whispered. "She didn't need your thanks. But she'd be proud to see you here." A tear rolled down his cheek. The first in decades. "Then maybe," he said softly, "there's still hope for me." The next morning, Clara sat by the diner window before opening hours. The world outside was still waking, soft light spilling across empty streets, the smell of rain hanging in the air. She clutched her mother's old purse in her lap, running her fingers across the faded leather. After last night's talk with Mr. Hensley, she hadn't slept. His words, the story about her mother saving his son, replayed again and again. How could Mama help someone who treated her that way? Why didn't she ever tell me? Her thoughts were interrupted when the manager, Rita, walked in holding a small envelope. "Clara," she said gently, "this was in your mom's old locker at the hospital. The staff found it when they cleared her things. They sent it here yesterday." Clara's breath caught. "For me?" Rita nodded. "Your name's on it." Clara stared at the envelope, her name written in her mother's careful handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed but neat. She unfolded it slowly, her eyes filling as she read. "My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, it means my time has come to rest. There's something I never told you. Not to hide it, but because I wanted you to live free of anger. One night I was working a late shift at the hospital when a man came in with his little boy. The boy couldn't breathe, and the father was scared. He said words I'll never forget. Words that hurt more than any wound. But do you know what I saw behind his anger? Fear. A father afraid to lose his child. So I did what I always promised myself I'd do. I helped anyway. Not because he deserved it, but because his son did. You see, Clara, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength that doesn't scream, and if one day you ever meet that man again, don't hate him. Show him that the love he couldn't understand still exists. In you. Remember, baby, kindness is the only thing they can't take from us. With all my love, Mom, the words blurred through her tears. Rita placed a hand on her shoulder. She was a special woman. Clara nodded, her voice breaking. She forgave him even before he asked. Rita smiled softly. That's what made her powerful. Clara folded the letter carefully and pressed it to her heart. Then I know what I have to do. Later that day, the diner bell jingled again. Mr. Hensley stood there, not in a suit this time, but in a simple gray jacket, holding a bouquet of white lilies. He approached the counter slowly. I wasn't sure you'd let me back in. Clara looked at him, eyes red but calm. I got your scholarship papers, and I read something today. He hesitated. Your mother's letter? She nodded. She told me to forgive you. So I will, his lip trembled. You don't have to. I know, she said gently, but she'd want me to. She believed in kindness more than pride. He looked down at the flowers, voice breaking. I wish I could thank her. Clara smiled sadly. You just did, by changing. She took the flowers and placed them in a glass near her mother's picture on the counter. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, she whispered, You know. She used to hum when she worked. Said it calmed people down. Mr. Hensley chuckled softly. I remember that sound. They both stood there in silence. The faint hum of the old jukebox filling the room. Gentle, steady, peaceful. A week later, sunlight streamed through the diner windows, turning the chrome counter gold. Customers chatted softly, the smell of coffee and maple syrup filling the air. Clara moved from table to table, her heart lighter than it had been in years. At the counter sat Mr. Hensley, now a regular, reading a local paper. On the front page, in bold letters, was the headline, The Gloria Matthews Scholarship for Nursing Begins Today. Beneath it was a photo of Clara shaking hands with the mayor, smiling nervously beside the caption, A daughter's love becomes a legacy. When she brought his coffee, she teased, I told you not to use that picture. I look terrified, he chuckled. That's not fear. That's pride trying to hide behind humility. Clara smiled. You've learned to talk like Mama. Maybe she's teaching me from somewhere, he said softly. Later that afternoon, a young woman in scrubs walked into the diner. She looked about 20, shy but hopeful. Excuse me, she said. Are you Clara Matthews? Yes, the girl clutched a folded letter. I wanted to thank you. I got accepted into nursing school because of your mom's scholarship. Clara blinked, stunned. You did? The girl nodded, eyes shining. I almost gave up. I couldn't afford tuition. But your mother's story, it made me want to try again. Clara covered her mouth, fighting tears. She'd be so proud. Mr. Hensley stood quietly behind the counter, listening. He looked away, blinking fast. When the girl left, he said, You see, the kindness you carry, it's contagious. That evening, after closing time, Clara stepped outside. The air was cool, the city lights glowing softly across the street. Mr. Hensley joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. I figured your mom would approve of decaf. Clara laughed gently. You're learning. They sat on the diner steps, watching cars pass. For a long while, neither spoke. Then he said, You know, I used to think success meant being respected. Now I know it's about being forgiven. She looked at him. And forgiven doesn't mean forgotten. He nodded. No, it means changed. Weeks passed. The scholarship fund grew as donations poured in. Reporters wanted interviews. Students sent letters of thanks. One afternoon, Clara opened a letter postmarked from another state. Inside was a photo of a young nurse standing beside a smiling boy in a wheelchair. The note read, Dear Clara, because of your mother's fund, I finished my training. This boy had an asthma attack yesterday. I remembered what your mom did for a child once, and I did the same. He's alive. Please tell your mom's story everywhere. Clara pressed the letter to her heart and whispered, "See, Mama? You're still saving them." A month later, the mayor invited Clara and Mr. Hensley to a hospital ceremony. A new wing had been named the Gloria Matthews Center for Compassionate Care. As the ribbon was cut, reporters asked Clara to speak. Her hands trembled, but her voice was clear. "My mother taught me that kindness is never wasted. The people who hurt you may forget, but the people you help never will." Her life proved that forgiveness can heal more than medicine ever could. She turned toward Mr. Hensley. "And sometimes, forgiveness gives someone else the chance to become better." He bowed his head. Humbled, tears glistening, applause filled the hall. Soft at first, then thunderous. That night, back at the diner, Clara placed a fresh bouquet beside her mother's photo. She whispered, "We did it, Mama. Your light didn't fade. It spread." 5 years later, the diner looked different. Brighter, busier, filled with laughter and the smell of pancakes and hope. A new sign above the counter read, "The Gloria Diner, a place for kindness." Clara stood behind the counter, her apron neat, her smile easy. On the wall behind her hung 3 photos, her mother in her nurse's uniform, smiling proudly. The first nursing class funded by the Gloria Matthews Scholarship. A newspaper clipping titled, "From Prejudice to Purpose, the CEO Who Found Redemption." Mr. Hensley had kept his promise. After the scholarship fund began, he retired early, dedicating the rest of his life to helping underprivileged students. Now, once a month, he came to the diner not as a businessman, but as a friend. This morning was one of those days. The bell over the door jingled. Clara looked up and grinned. "You're late," she teased. He smiled, walking in slowly with his cane. "Old legs, young heart," she poured his coffee. "The usual," he nodded. "And a slice of that pie you keep pretending you don't eat." Clara laughed. "Only because you buy it first." At the next table, a group of nursing students chatted over their meals, wearing their white coats proudly. One of them leaned toward Clara. "Miss Matthews, are you really the one who started the scholarship?" Clara blushed. "My mom did. I just keep it going." Another student smiled. "We're all here because of her. We want to work at St. Mary's." "Someday," Clara nodded, eyes soft, "then you'll carry her heart forward." Mr. Hensley watched quietly from his seat, a proud smile touching his lips. Later that afternoon, Clara found a small envelope on the counter with her name written in delicate handwriting. Inside was a card that read, "Dear Clara, we wanted you to know the scholarship has now helped 120 nurses graduate. Your mother's kindness keeps growing. Through us, thank you for never giving up on her story. The St. Mary's Alumni Association." Clara pressed the card to her heart. "You'd be smiling so big right now, Mama," she whispered. That evening, as the sky turned gold and the diner emptied, Mr. Hensley lingered by the counter. "Clara," he said, "I'm proud of you. Of what you've done, of what you've become." She smiled. "You helped too, you know. You changed," he chuckled softly. "Maybe your mother's forgiveness was the medicine I needed all along." They shared a quiet moment, sunlight pouring through the glass like grace itself. "Sometimes," he said, "I wonder why she forgave me." Clara looked at him gently. "Because she saw something good under the fear. She believed people could come back from their worst mistakes." He nodded slowly. "Then I hope I've proved her right." She smiled faintly. "You have." As the years rolled on, the Gloria Matthews Foundation expanded beyond the city, supporting hospitals, creating free clinics, and training hundreds of nurses. Her story became a film. Her quote, "Kindness is the only thing they can't take from us," was painted on walls, printed in books, whispered in hospitals worldwide. And every year, on the anniversary of her mother's passing, Clara hosted a free dinner at the diner. Doctors, nurses, and even former patients came. They shared stories of compassion, forgiveness, and courage. At the end of one such night, Clara stood before the crowd, holding a photo of her mother. My mom once said kindness can outlive pain, she said softly. She was right. Because tonight, I see her in all of you. The crowd rose in applause. Mr. Hensley, sitting near the back, wiped away a tear and whispered, "You did it, Gloria. You changed the world. Moral of the story: forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. Kindness can turn even the deepest wounds into bridges that heal others.